Welcome to Better, the podcast about doing better, being better, and leaving the world a better place than we found it. What's up, everybody? Welcome to Better, the podcast about doing better, being better, and making the world a better place. If you did not check out part one of my interview with Jeff Deskovic, you have to. You have to go back, listen or watch part one, and then come back to this episode and check out part two, which is right now. I'm about to do part two. I'm very rarely ever without words at times or have too many questions in my head to even ask one, but that has been the state of this interview since the beginning. I could probably do about 45 episodes with this guy, but we're limited to 2, and we're going to get back into this now. Jeff, how are you doing?
I'm great, Jay. I'm really pumped up for part 2, man. It was such an enjoyable interview the first go round. I have no doubt it will be the same for part 2.
Absolutely. Okay, so we won't touch on the backstory at all because they can go back to part 1. They can check that out.
Sure.
So again, if you haven't checked out part 1, press pause, go to part 1, come back, and welcome back. My first question I have as I'm thinking about everything you said to me in part 1 is you talked about family not really coming to see you. I recently had a 97-year-old family member that was in a home, and it was kind of the same thing. It was maybe on holidays their family came to see them, but for the most part, they were in isolation. They really didn't have a lot of people except for those that were around them in the home. And to be honest, a lot of them were, not all there. So very isolating circumstance. What year did you get out of prison?
2006.
Okay, it's 2006. So what many consider to be the worst point in their lives, the most isolated point in their lives, was COVID, with the lockdown.
Right.
And many people had to deal with that for about 6 to 8 months where they felt very isolated from the world. Some people a little longer. Like I'm in Canada. We had much more stringent regulations than the US. So, we felt it a little bit longer than most in the US. But I guess there's still people struggling with that, right? There's still people struggling with what happened during COVID. You went much further into isolation than most can go. What would be your advice as somebody that's been through that to help pull yourself out of that funk of isolation?
I would say first of all, remember where you came from, what your situation was. That's number one. And, that really kind of grounds me and helps me to appreciate everything and, appreciate the small things. Like I really enjoy, for example, the sun on my face and, freedom of movement and just to be able to sit outside in the evening or to feel some fresh air. So those are some of the things. And then also, I do believe in having like a bucket list and doing those things. And I like to enjoy life. So my way of trying to experience the world is I like to have new experiences. I like new activities. I like to go to new places. I like trying new food. The more wilder something is on the menu, the more likely I am to order it with the line being drawn. I'm not eating insects, but short of that, I'm trying everything. And look, travel. So in those ways, I mean, I like to. It's kind of experiencing the world. I find that my world is richer for me in doing that. Just the whole human experience and freedom and what is the world. So I enjoy that. I enjoy a deep, non-superficial conversation that includes sharing critical thoughts and viewpoints and wrestling with points someone else is making with while they're considering that and evaluating those things and seeing, do I need to refine anything, but also thinking about what are the counter arguments and someone else doing something, doing the opposite. And it just being a really connecting type of conversation. So I all those things I think are part of it, and try to maintain some sort of work-life balance and try to find some time to do some of the things that you enjoy to do. Like I still play chess, for example. That was something I learned to do in prison. That was not a bad thing. That I do enjoy that, and the ethic of setting a goal and just never giving up. Coming up with all types of different methods and trying things that have been tried before and coming up with some new potential routes. Those are all some positive things that I think I took from, the prison, along with on the practical side, I'm so happy I learned how to type, man. I mean, everything's computerized, and I don't have to look down and do the Fred Flintstone, and I put my fingers on the home row key and I can go.
Hey, Sterling, he's my girlfriend's son. I'm teaching him home row right now, and he's like, "This is stupid." You listen to this man, Sterling.
That's one of the most valuable things that I took back from with me. I utilize that every day. So Sterling, stay at it. It's worth it, man.
There you go. This is totally kind of a little off topic, but I just got me to thinking. You said you're able to, which I didn't know was even a thing. You're able to get a TV in your cell at some point.
Yes.
You said you didn't spend much time watching, but you did when you needed it. What did you watch? I'm just curious.
Yeah. I've never been asked that question before, by the way. So I watched Star Trek Voyager. I enjoyed that show, and kind of what might be termed as kind of a guilty pleasure. I used to. So on Thursdays. So look, we had recreation every other night in Elmira. So I never abstained from going to recreation in order to watch this or any other program. So let me just caveat that way. But on the Thursdays where I had no choice but to be confined to myself, the guilty pleasure was I used to watch SmackDown. So it was a wrestling show. It was WWE, yeah, formerly known as WWF. And look, in order to increase my entertainment, me and all the other prisoners, as far as I know, that watched it, like I would pretend that all the skits were real and the silly things they'd say, or the crap they'd be talking to each other, and all the plans, and then make pretend that every kick, every punch, every body slam, every other move, that it was all real, man. And that maximized my enjoyment. And so it would not be uncommon for me and other people to laugh. Sundays were easier to get by in prison than other days during the football season. So I would kind of overdose on football games. So I had a radio. So I would listen to the 1 o'clock game. I'd listen to the 4 o'clock game. I would listen to Sunday night football. And I would do that while I simultaneously had my TV on, but the volume was turned down. So in those days, you could only listen. The TV only got like 5 basic stations. We didn't have cable. So we were stuck, as far as what you could see locally for the first game, at least. We were stuck either with the New York Giants or the New York Jets. And in those days, those teams were terrible. They were not at all exciting, but lacking anything else. I had the game on to watch, but I was more into the games that were being broadcast on the radio. Those were like more marquee games. So I did that on Sunday, and sometimes we cook a Sunday meal with me and the prisoner in the cell next to me. So we had like a hot pot, and so I had a regular hot pot. He had a metal hot pot that he had purchased on the black market. You're not allowed to have it, but you can be a goody two shoes. Okay, or you could try to improve the quality of your life a little bit more. And we were going in the latter direction. Let's just say that. Okay. And so we had a system hooked up so that a few of the prisoners there who were in much better financial position than either of us. So the idea was they'd send food down for him to cook, and they would have to send enough food for him to eat also. And he would cook the entree and the skilled items. I would heat up the boring rice and the vegetables. I would do that, and you put the stuff in a bowl, and I stick it through the bars and move it all the way over, hand it to him, and he'd send the stuff back to the guy, and him and I would eat a meal. So that was something memorable and enjoyable. So I had like a Sunday, I had a Sunday routine, and Monday nights were pretty good. They had Monday night football, and I loved when it was NBA playoffs because there were so many games. But of course, as good as that stuff was, and as much as that made the time go by, it was always a sad thing when the damn playoffs and the postseason was over because there's no more until next season.
Right. Yeah. Wow. That's funny. Who was your favorite wrestler on SmackDown?
Oh, definitely Kurt Angle.
Hey,
yes.
that's funny. There you go. Yeah.
Yeah, so, he had the whole metal out, and the music and all the music and all the stuff.
He
so
won a gold medal with a broken freaking neck.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah. That's right.
Yeah.
That was my favorite.
I actually had him.
The Rock was very exciting, also.
Oh, yeah.
You'd have the people's elbow, and
Yeah.
and all the his verbal routines was a little bit more exciting than Kurt Angle's. I mean, I like the fact that Angle actually really was a wrestler. Olympic, albeit Olympic, and he was an Olympic champion there, which was in contrast to just, The Rock was just The Rock was just a fake. The Rock was just like he was just doing the fake wrestling and everything, but he was exciting sometimes, and once in a while they'd be matched against each other too. So that was really the best of it.
Yeah, I've always more entertained by The Rock for sure. Big fan of The Rock, but Kurt Angle is my favorite wrestler, and actually in a future episode of this, he's on the show.
Really?
Yeah. So I said to him, I was like, dude, you are, as far as I'm concerned, the most well-rounded superstar in the history of WWE. He's just he's an amazing athlete. I will never forget, the common threads, right? You were in prison, I wasn't. I will never forget the milk truck scene. When he blasted Stone Cold and all them.
Yeah. I remember that. Yeah. You got and they had the Jerry the King Lawler. The commentators, Michael Cole and the Jerry the King Lawler. They went, "Got milk." He's over there, and he'd yell out, "Got milk."
Yes.
Yeah, he would with your smell, what The Rock is cooking, and then the eye would go up and everything. Yeah. But listen, man, those days it was, those days it was critical, man, and I actually wrote an op-ed that got published one year by Sports Illustrated in their op-ed section, which is of course called Point After, and I talked about the role of sports both in prison and also as applied to me in getting through getting through my ordeal in prison. Super Bowl and was always like a big thing, and you try to I had a few bags of chips and snacks to do the best that I could, Super Bowl party type thing.
Yeah.
And I want to share with the audience, in terms of when I was released, it was not all fun and games when I was released. I mean, there were 5 difficult years, because they released you with nothing. And although I brought lawsuits, it took 5 years before I got anything. So just to briefly describe, just some more adversity, right? I hadn't gotten through enough. So some more adversity that I also didn't quit on and made it through. So, technology was different. So GPS, cell phones, internet hadn't been created. Culture was different. Cities and towns looked different. Just enough familiar structures and surrounded by an overwhelming amount of new things that enough to make it feel like I was in like a parallel world. So It felt like I was a fish out of water. So there was that. And repairing relations with my extended family. I mean, it was weird because it was awkward because I knew who they were intellectually from memories when I was younger, but I was a different person now, and so were they. And it's being as though we did not stay in contact, the growth and advancement was much more pronounced. So it was really hard to reconnect with them.
What I'm curious about on that point is who initiated the connection? Was it them or you?
It was me. I mean, I made rounds and bumped in. Sometimes I bumped into people, like when I went to see one of my aunts, for example, a couple of times. Some of my cousins who were their kids just, either happened to come over or were already there. So it kind of happened organically, but it took a while, man. I mean, I did feel, some resentment. I mean, they never came to see me. There were different points in time when my mother attempted to make rounds to get everybody put in a manageable amount of money so that combined we could hire a lawyer I need. And of course, nobody ever went along with that. But I found that other than beyond what I had to work through, there was a type of collective guilt that they all felt because they hadn't supported, that they hadn't helped out. So, they felt bad about that. I was always let me say that when I was always passed over for gainful employment, it seemed like everybody wanted on the job. They were not willing to give on the job training. They wanted somebody with a work history that could hit the ground running rather than a little bit of patience for on the job training. So as a result of that, I did lack stability of housing. At one point, I was a couple of weeks away from a homeless shelter. I went to mental health professionals like 4 times a week for 6 years and dealing with the after effects of the experience. There was certainly the stigmata aspect of it. You were in prison for 16 years, wrongfully. Yes. But you've been in prison for 16 years. How much of that rubbed off on you? Is it safe to be alone someplace with you? And then it was just straight lonely. But again, once again, I didn't quit, and you kind of position yourself. So while I was struggling with all those things, I simultaneously, I had begun speaking. I found someone that, at least at that point in time, functioned as a manager, so they were booking speaking engagements. I got a job as a weekly columnist. So they started out, they interviewed me for a story, but I figured, well, let me try to talk them into giving me a job to write about these things, so that worked out. So, I was a weekly columnist. Mercy College, which gave me a scholarship to finish the bachelor's degree. I wanted to be like I like win-win scenarios. So I said, look, you offer me the scholarship, which I'm taking, the only thing I could really offer you really is some publicity so we can do a press conference when, just on my first day of school. And as it turned out, it was shortly after that had all been set up that I lost the temporary housing, hence coming within a couple of weeks of a homeless shelter. So I had to contact a member of the school, and I said, look, I know we were going to do the press conference about my starting school, but I've got to change the focus of this now. Now I got to make this about, I'm starting school, but, I'm about to be in a homeless shelter. I got to get the word out, so if somebody is so inclined to help me out, that they will. And he flew into action. And as it turned out, somebody that was supposed to live on campus suddenly canceled that. And now they had a dorm room available.
Wow.
So they let me live on campus, and they also gave me a meal plan. So that was how that worked out.
If they make a movie about your life, you should take ownership of and patent the phrase "turning lemons into lemonade."
100%, yeah.
Wow, I'm every time you say something new, I'm like, Jesus, this story is just so wild.
The other thing is, I figured out. So a lot of people when they're exonerated, they get like a quick 5-minute hit of fame, right? And then after that, you never hear from them again. But I figured out how to keep the media coverage going. I figured out, well, as long as I'm doing something new, then I could pitch that and I could keep going and I could stay relevant in the news. And, at this point, I've been home for 18 years and, I still get media offers and I still do new media interviews. So I've figured out how to do that. After 5 years, I did finally get financially compensated. So before that, I had just been an individual advocate, speaking, writing, doing media interviews, meeting with the elected officials. I wanted to be involved in freeing people. But as an individual advocate, I could only really nibble on the edges. So I allowed my name to be used in press releases. I would get media coverage for other people's cases. I would show up in court for the visual, like on the idea that if the judge recognizes me, then maybe they'll pay a little bit more closer attention to the case that's in front of them. Would engage in grassroots tactics. So I would pack the courtroom. But all that is really just, and I would write about cases too in my capacity as a columnist. And this would be before people were exonerated. Not the coverage that's afterwards, but the critical coverage when it's ahead of time. But all that stuff really was just nibbling on the edges. So when I finally was compensated, I wanted to take it to the next level. So I used some of the money to start the Jeffrey Deskovic Foundation for Justice. The idea was to make it a legacy, that's something that would far outlive me. And so far, I mean, as I mentioned in the first episode, we've been able to free 14 people, help pass 3 laws, help pass another 6. I didn't get into law school the first time I tried, so I went and got the master's degree. I thought that the additional credential would make me a better advocate, and that I could cite that if and when I decided to try to reapply to law school later. Like I could make a showing that I could do grad level work. And at some point, I got tired of sitting in the front row of the courtroom. I wanted to be able to sit at the defense table. I wanted to make some of the arguments, wanted to represent some of the clients, hence making another foray to try to get into law school. I got in this time and graduated law school, became a lawyer, helped overturn my first case as an attorney a year ago, was co-counsel in the Andre Brown case. We helped to overturn his conviction. Andre came home. His name was Andre Brown. He had been in for 23 years. We helped to overturn his conviction, and he came home 2 weeks into December, so just in time to join his wife and kids.
I actually know that case. Yeah. Wow. Okay, so I guess we don't have much time left here. I think at some point we should connect again.
I would love that. Yes.
I mean, I'm not even
to ask and topics to cover. Yeah, 100%. I'd love to come back.
For sure. So to end this one off, what does it? 3 questions to end it off. First one being, what does it feel like to be involved in getting someone out who is wrongfully accused?
It's such a humbling and yet awe-inspiring moment. I mean, I believe I'm in the world in order to free people and to prevent what happened to me from others. So, I mean, that's like to free someone, that's like the holy grail right there. Right. So, and it's just such a reinforcement, that I'm on the right path, that I'm doing the right thing. It's a awe-inspiring yet humbling thing.
So you know how football players all have cellies, right? They they got or whatever they do when they get into the end zone. You must have a celly. All the things that all the perseverance that you've shown in life. What is your celly?
I think my celly is going, yeah.
There you go. Yeah.
And of course the customer, the celebratory luncheon. For sure. Yes.
Gotta have food involved.
Gotta have food, and it's gotta be top notch and whatever you want, and just sitting there watching whoever it is that's just been freed, just watching them relish a good meal, to have like Andre had like a steak and a lobster, or having some kind of nice meal, as contrasted with the terrible food in the mess hall, or even the best meal that you can possibly make in a hot pot in yourself can't compare to restaurant level food.
Yeah, I spent January in the hospital, and I know it's not prison, but I sure felt at times like it, considering the mess that our healthcare system's in, and the food was absolutely terrible. And the first thing after I got a haircut, I went and I had myself a Brazilian steak, perfectly spiced, at Hermano's here in Winnipeg. And
oh, wow.
Every bite, I did it. I ate in slow motion in that moment. My girlfriend, her mom, my mom came, and we did this thing, and I let that hour live on for, like, it felt like 8, 9, 10 hours in my head. Every bite was like, I just savored every piece of that steak, right? And I believe food is a huge connective tissue for us in terms of celebrating, and that's awesome. I couldn't, I've done, I was trying to explain this to somebody the other day, how important advocacy work is for me. And, we got into this thing about how they didn't make much money doing one of my events one time. And I said, yeah, but it was for charity. Like we weren't there to make money. He's like, oh, I didn't know that. I'm like, but I said it, and so I think to the wins that I've had there, 4 particular wins that I've had doing advocacy work. And I remember there was one in particular where we were fighting. We thought it was going to be about a 2 to 3 week advocacy project for nurses to get a contract in our province. It ended up being an 8-month campaign that overtook my life completely. And I was in the middle of working when the contract came through. So I got this text. We did it. We got the contract. I remember I went into the washroom and I looked in the mirror and I was like, I like this reflection. This is who I want to be, So I can imagine, you go through all this, you get out, you prove your innocence. Now you're proving other people innocent. God, it must just be a rush. It must just be, you hear people say, if I were to die tomorrow, I would be okay because of everything I was able to accomplish. You have accomplished beyond what I'm sure you could, the 16-year-old that was going through all this up to could ever imagined. When you are done with when everything's said and done and you're an old man and you're laying in bed and your family's around you and you're going to close your eyes for the final time, what do you hope will be your lasting legacy outside of this foundation? What do you hope people know about you?
I hope that people know that I lived a life of making it. My life was for the purpose of making a difference.
I like that. Yeah, because I mean, like I said, I think it was in the first episode, I said your perseverance is just outstanding. I mean, astounding. It's every word I can think of for incredible, right? And that is ultimately, I think, why I do this podcast. But that's ultimately that should be the goal, right? For everybody to make this world a better place, and you're actually doing that. I say the slogan, the motto is do better, be better, make the world a better place. And often I say, well, I'm having somebody on that's doing better. I'm having someone that's, being better. It's very rare that I have somebody on that's doing that last part, making the world a better place. Right. And you're doing that. At some point, are you in a relationship? Do you have kids? What does that look like for you?
All right, so I don't have kids, but I guess I'll make the announcement here. Haven't before, so yes, I have a girlfriend that I've been in a serious relationship with for a year, and she makes me very happy, and I make her happy.
Isn't that a great feeling?
That really is, yes.
I'm too. I'm just under a year. I'm in a relationship with my girlfriend, and it's changed everything for me. Changed my outlook, made everything a lot more. I don't know if you could be more positive than the guy who basically just went through jail, understanding that he would get out. But she's definitely improved my life. What if you? I don't know if you've ever asked her this question. What does she think about all this? What does she think?
Well, she thinks it's an amazing story. She thinks it's a horrific thing that happened, but at the same time, she does have she does have an admiration of my perseverance and strength and what I've made out of my life and making a difference in the world. And she's very she's very supportive of that. And actually, she in the near future, she would like to get a bachelor's degree and go to law school and become an attorney and be working on wrongful conviction cases right alongside of me.
Dude, this is a movie. Come on. This has to be a movie.
Listen, from your mouth to God's ears, if anyone's listening, I mean, I'd love to get love to get a movie done for sure, and to get my story out, and other art forms, whether you play, musical, one-man show. I mean, God knows there's been so many of those types of works on stories that have much less significance, and I do think that my story, can be used as raising awareness of the issue of wrongful conviction and the foundation and the need for systemic change to prevent these deficiencies. My case is unfortunately not rare. Per the National Registry of Exonerations, which tracks stats on this in the U.S., 3,000 from 1989 forward, 3,518 people who have been exonerated. Really, this is a worldwide problem. So my ultimate goal is to have a chapter of the foundation in each state and ultimately in each country. Countries where we don't hear about this happening, it's not because the injustices aren't happening. It's that no one's working on it. There's very few people working on it. No one's being exonerated. So that's the ultimate. That's the ultimate dream. That people like what they've heard here in your podcast. There is a documentary short out on Amazon Prime called Conviction. It's about my life post exoneration and advocacy work. I'd love people to keep up with me on social media. Instagram, Deskovic Foundation. On Facebook, the Jeffrey Deskovic Foundation. I'm there too, Jeffrey Deskovic. My personal and public, personal profile is set to public, and I have the public figure because I have too many people keeping up, so I copy over. So definitely people can keep up with me for sure.
Well, I have zero doubt that you will do all of that, because anybody that doubts you should not be a betting man.
Right.
So my final question to you is, I don't know if you thought about this. If there was a movie,
right,
who plays you?
The adult version definitely would be Tom Cruise, I think.
There you go. I love it.
that way a lot of people will come to the movie as well. I mean, I think they'd have to have like a younger version of me. I mean, there was an actor. Anyone ever watched the movie The Heavenly Kid? I always felt like as a younger, as 16, 17, Jason Gederick kind of looked. I know him had a hair and it's pushed back, and he kind of resembled me. I do want to mention to the audience. I mean, if people are moved by my story, if you like the work that I do. Imagine if there were 25,000 people willing to part with $3 to $5 a month on a recurring monthly basis through our Patreon page. I mean, that would give us close to $1 million. And, if we could get these type of results, on a shoestring budget, imagine if we really had additional funding, additional personnel. We could bring in additional lawyers, investigators, paralegals, other essential personnel. We could really blow it out and bring a lot more people home and do policy work in more than just New York, Pennsylvania, and California. Speaking of PA, let me just sneak a thought in. The policy work we're doing in Pennsylvania, Pennsylvania is one of 12 states in the U.S. that currently does not compensate people who've been wrongfully convicted. So if I had been freed and released in Pennsylvania, I wouldn't have been entitled to anything. So we're working on trying to pass compensation in that state.
Well, who has talked about this subject before, and I don't think he's watching, but I'll definitely try to bring it to his attention as best I can, is our boy from SmackDown, the People's Champ.
Listen, we don't have any celebrity spokespeople. The platform and popularity. Imagine if The Rock shot like a 30-second thing just talking about the foundation and wrongful conviction and encouraging people just to sign up to the Patreon page. That would be amazing. It would be amazing even just to be able to speak to him for a couple of minutes. He's very entertaining. I love his movies. He's very entertaining there. It would almost be like a mini dream come true to be able to just chat with him for a few minutes. So
yeah, well, he almost went down a bad road, right? And and he talks about it in his books and he talks about it in his interviews. So and he did recently say in an interview with Fox around WrestleMania that he is done trying to be this public voice, but more to move in that direction to help people that he knows deserve it. So when I do release the episode, I'll make sure to tag the hell out of him You know, that would be, I would love to see that. I could definitely see this as being something that he would get involved with. So, you know, here's hoping.
Absolutely. Yeah. Here.
Yeah, and Rocky, if you do get involved, I will smell what you're cooking way more if you're involved with this than if you're not. And you have 2 lifetime fans already. Why not double it up and make it awesome? So, dude, thank you so much for being on the show. I know that we didn't even scratch the surface, but I really wanted. My goal was to inform and then to show people that you are a great human being, so that they will go follow you and learn more and get involved. And I think that's absolutely what has happened from these 2 episodes. And I look forward to following the journey. I'm going to go tonight. I'm taking care of my girlfriend's dog, and I'm going to her house. I'm going to go turn on Amazon. I'm going to watch the documentary, and I will definitely share it with everybody. And yeah, like I said, we'll connect again in the near future. And is there anything you want to say before we go?
Just thanks so much for having me on. And listen, you know, it happened to me. You know, it could happen to you. It could happen to you. And you know, and beyond that, just you know, enjoy life as much as you can, and do your utmost to always better your position, what you're doing, and you know, when you overcome a significant obstacle, you definitely reach back and help somebody in the same position you were once in. So making a difference, that all important thing. If people take nothing else away from the episode, I want them to take away, you know, my hot take, which is, you know, do what you can to make a difference on whatever ways or levels that are open to you. Try to make a difference.
Absolutely.